episode of Kainos Confidential. This is episode 4, and we have on the show your very own co-youth pastor, Ashley Pereira. Hello.
Hello. I'm not sure that title is correct, but yeah, that's cool. Fine. Good, thanks.
So
how are you?
You're not the co-youth pastor, is that right?
I don't think officially, no.
So you're not the youth pastor. How long have you been in youth leadership?
Well, that's a good question. I want to say off the top of my head about 15 years.
15 years, wow.
Yeah, it probably is about 15 years, actually.
So how did you get into Kainos leadership?
So when I was young, Morton was our youth leader, youth pastor, and he actually asked everyone how they wanted to get involved and what they wanted to do. And I actually said, yeah, I wouldn't mind getting to youth leadership. And because without going too deep into the story, they didn't really respond straight away. But yeah, eventually they sort of came back and said, oh, if you're still interested, yeah, there's a seat at the table for you. Come along to the meetings and get involved and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that was it.
Wow. So that was 15 years ago.
I started getting more actively involved at youth when I was first year uni. So just finished high school, first year uni, we started getting really actively involved. And actually, so this is a long story. Sorry, I lied to you before. They did ask me to join the leadership, but I played basketball on a Saturday night, and that meant I missed a number of Saturdays. And so it was like one or the other. And at the time I was sort of on the basketball team, so I was like, well, sorry, I can't join. But we and some other folk were quite involved at that point anyway. And, leadership isn't necessarily only the title. So we were pretty active. We were doing a lot of work at youth. That was probably 2004. And then, yeah, it was probably late 2005 that Morton made it official.
So what happened with the basketball?
Yeah, I did stop. After that happened, I had that chat with Mort. And I was kind of like, well, look, I play basketball. That's a commitment I made. And to simply walk away from that, I think is also not great for my witness. I mean, I probably wouldn't have put it in such like heavy terms, but I was kind of like, well, but as basketball is a domestic comp, so you just play seasons, right? 6-month seasons. And one night I was just sort of driving home from the game and sort of thought, church is more important. Like trying to energize a group of young people is more important. And if that is a sacrifice that I need to make, giving up a sport that I'd played for since I was 12. So at that point, close to 10 years or something.
So what do you attribute that sacrificial decision that you made, driving home thinking, okay, I want to serve in youth. It's more important to serve young people than play basketball on a Saturday. Do you attribute that sacrificial sort of attitude to, for example, personal maturity or the Holy Spirit intervening in your life? What would you say?
Oh, yeah, no, it's probably just like the Holy Spirit dropping something in my heart, I think. Mm-hmm. At that point in my life, I was really passionate about what youth could be, and I think if there are any kids watching this, I don't know what sort of views you get, what sort of traffic's coming through this show, but
millions. It's in the millions.
All right, well then, for the millions around the world watching this, for all of time, because it's now on the internet. Back then, youth was very different, and church culture in large was very different, and we had big dreams for what we could make youth. Mm-hmm. And we saw the opportunity, I think, and we went with it.
So if we're going to circle back to your basketball decision, one of the most common questions we get, not just on this show, but in youth work in general, is how does a person hear from God? So in your own personal life, how have you sort of learned to discern that God is speaking to you or trying to get your attention in some way?
Yeah, okay. It's a good question. I don't know if I can answer it with the story of the basketball story, to be completely honest. So I'll speak to what I can and say this. I believe then, and this was probably a start of a journey for me, which I'm still on and very much still committed to and passionate about, even though it looks a bit different these days. But I, as a person, have made this commitment to God. That's what being a Christian is. And it's serious. Like, when you think about it as being a Christian, it basically impacts all aspects of your life. So it's a big deal. And to make such a big deal decision, you sort of need to be committed to it and passionate about it. And for someone like me who had all that, I looked at my peers and thought, I think there could be more passion. I think God is big enough and awesome enough that we could all be a little bit more excited about it. And that was more than anything else. That became the driving force, and everything else sort of fell in under that. So it's like, if this is what my priority is, then, well, it's okay to not play basketball. I'll miss it, and I'm sad to walk away from it. But like I said, it sits here, and then your Christian walk sits there. And in the cold light of day, there's no real competition.
All right, so we're all on a spiritual journey, I think you alluded to before. How has lockdown affected your spiritual journey? Are you doing anything different in your own personal walk with God than you would have done prior to lockdown?
Under lockdown and having to work from home, I get a lot of my commute time back. And so probably the biggest way it's affected me has been the ability to take my time in the mornings, pray, read my Bible, read a book alongside it, and do my devotions in a very different way to what I'd normally do, which is nice. And yeah, in the sense of it affecting me, it's affected me very positively in that regard. Mm-hmm. Great.
So outside of things like Bible reading and prayer time, devotion time, is there anything that you do to connect with God, like stay connected or deepen your relationship with Him?
No, those are probably big ones. I mean, for me personally, I also like to noodle around on my instruments. So, like depending on the instrument at the time that I'm interested in, like you bring in a few Christian songs to it, and you can always sort of like, even if you're just banging out a few chords here or there, you can always spend a little bit of time connecting through that medium as well. So yeah, I mean, like, prayer, meditation, reading the Bible, reading a book on, God or theology or something, and a bit of music worship. Yeah, I think that's probably covers most of my personal bases. If you know any more, put it in the comments and I'll give it a try.
All right, well, you cover all the classics. What are you hoping doesn't change after lockdown? Like, what are you really enjoying about lockdown?
I personally like the fact that there's a little less on. There are things that I miss. I still play basketball, and I do miss the run and the hit out. But yeah, I mean, we obviously have a lot less on. Last Saturday, we couldn't go out to a cafe. We didn't have to physically go out and prepare for youth. It was all at home. So we just found ourselves, sitting at home on Saturday, reading a book for a bit, then we watched a movie for a bit. It's really nice. It was a really relaxing and restful day, which is not always common.
So it sounds like you're foreshadowing your departure from youth leadership, which sort of feeds into the rumors that are circulating that a regime change is on the way. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, let's comment. Let's really bite into this one. So, people are, trying to like bubble up and ferment this like coup, but they forget that I'm married to the associate pastor, and basically untouchable, I think. Redact that.
Pretty confident. No, we won't edit that one out. But people do want to know, do you think it's more annoying to live with Susie or with Lily?
Oh, yeah. Okay, good question. It's a really hard one to answer because, like, Suze might tell you that, she loves the smell of her own farts, and that can sometimes negatively impact the other people in the house. But, Lily's probably...
YouTube, right?
Lily's still at the age where... Redact that one then. Lily's still at the age where she doesn't really understand sort of like, how to treat other people. So, she's quite awesome and can be quite annoying at times. But, they're both really great company, especially in lockdown.
Yeah. Well, we want to go through some more lighthearted questions before we finish up. That's usually how we do on the show. what if you could have any animal as a pet? What would you pick and why?
I mean, I'd probably just go with a dog because, I'm fairly risk averse and there's a really good sample size of data to suggest that dogs make good pets. But I suppose if I was going for something a little bit more exotic and I had the space, like a tortoise.
Oh,
I really like their feet.
most people say like a Pegasus or like a unicorn or a lion or something. Well, you picked a tortoise. That's cool. All right, next question. DC or Marvel? What's your favorite and why?
Can you guys see my Spider-Man there? Spider-Man's my favorite comic book character.
Yep. Yeah, you're ripping the Spider-Man merch.
Yep. So I mean, there's always that aspect, Marvel. But look, the movies Marvel are making at the moment, they're better. But generally speaking, I think the books, DC are better. So
Okay.
I'll have it both ways, please.
Yeah, no problem. All right. If you could pick a city other than Melbourne to live in, what would you pick?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Oh, I don't know. You and me, we spent a bit of time in Barcelona a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the vibe of Barca.
Mm-hmm.
If I was rich enough to live in a really in an area that wasn't riddled with crime or anything like that, I think that would probably be my first hit. Although I do have a good friend who said that Vienna was like the best place in the world to live in. So I haven't been to Vienna. So maybe that would also make the shortlist.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Barcelona would be cool. That's a good choice. I was going to ask you as our last question, your favorite travel destination so far. Where's that been?
It's probably a two-way tie. We went to Japan a couple of years back, and Japan was bonkers. And yeah, I mean, I cannot wait to get back on Japanese soil and eat some karage. Mm-hmm. But I love going to the States. And I always explain this to people because I'm a lazy holidayer, unlike my brother interviewing me and my father, who like to go out and be with the people and do things and see things and always just be like pound the pavement. Probably a bit more like mum, just wants to sit back and chill. Mm-hmm. And you go to the States and there's no real culture gap. I don't have to learn a new language. I don't really have to understand how people operate. I can just go there and eat their disgustingly huge hamburgers and, enjoy the concrete jungle that they've built. And yeah, it's really good. It's really relaxing for someone like me.
Fantastic. All right. So I know I said that was the last question, but sorry, that was a lie. This is the last
bonus
question.
Round.
This is the last question. You got one shot. This is your message for all of Kainos youth who's watching. What is it?
The pressure. Redacted.
No, I'm leaving this in.
I think it's probably like 2020 and lockdown has taught us that we probably misunderstand what the church is and who we are as the church. And hopefully you guys are all getting this revelation that it's not a building and it's not a service. It's especially not an order of service. It's not a dress code or a sound or anything like that. It is you guys interacting with your God first and then taking that interaction and that change that he puts in your life and using that to interact with your community. So hopefully you're doing that, praying a lot and getting around your friends and telling them what God's been doing. But, let's be real, guys. Attendance hasn't been great on our online services, so not 100% sure about any of these things. Here's hoping.
That's great.
Redacted.
Usually people give us that was pretty good. It was a good mix of positive and then slight admonition at the end. But that's fine. Thank you so much for being on this episode of Kainos Confidential. I think this has been our most theological one to date. So we're going to have a look at the YouTube analytics and see exactly where people start to drop off in the views. And then that might inform next week's questions. It might all be about food and travel. I'm just kidding. We want to talk about God. That's what we're here for. We're not here for entertainment. I mean, that's clearly the case because I don't think anyone finds this entertaining. But thanks for being on the show. And
for having me.
No worries. For those of you who are watching, we'll see you this week on Saturday for Youth Online. And as we always say, hopefully soon in the building. Until then, stay safe and don't catch COVID if possible. See ya.